Hey everyone, we're here today with Suzanne Jabour, and we are talking about 20 Shades of Grief. This is a book with 20 collaborating authors, all talking about their journeys with grief. Suzanne, it's so great to meet you and to have you part of this book. So, what made you decide to write a chapter in this book?
I actually knew the curator before the book, as she was just kind of contemplating the book. And so we had talked about how important it is for people to have places to share their grief stories and for other people to read grief stories who maybe aren't comfortable, don't have spaces where they can share theirs. So that really was the motivation, was to just be part of that creation of more spaces where we're having these conversations and we're talking about how grief really works and how it impacts us and kind of what happens.
So, is that what you do? Is that your job? Are you a grief counselor, or tell us a little
Yeah,
bit more
I'm a
about
grief
that?
coach. So I work with one on one with clients and with groups, really helping people lean into the transformational power of grief. So that sense of knowing that you are not going to be the person you were before whatever the loss was that created the rupture. And so whoever you're going to be next is either going to happen by accident or it's going to happen with some intention and with some thought and some intentional step taking, if that makes sense, skill building, and really allowing our emotions to be valid and our curiosity to kind of lead the way.
Yeah. And I think when we have a an impactful person in our life that we lose,
Mm-hmm.
it changes the dynamic of our life. It changes, everything sometimes depending on who that person is. And then
Yeah.
dealing with I love how you said, the person that now you've had to become after that. I know someone kind of explained it to me one time, like taking a picture and shattering it and then
Mm,
trying to put it all back together. You can try and put it back together, but it's never going to be the same.
yeah. Yeah. That's beautiful. Yeah. I talk a lot about how in the early days after my son died, and I can't remember if I wrote about this in my chapter or if it made the edit or not. I think I did. But I had this really clear vision of myself with my arms full of like big 3D puzzle pieces, like the kind they use on Survivor when they're making those big puzzles at the challenges. And that I was also surrounded by those same puzzle pieces on the ground, like more of them. And but I couldn't carry them all. So I had to figure out like what puzzle pieces am I going to keep? And these are all parts of me, right? These are all aspects of myself. This is me broken into pieces. Some of them I can hold, some of them are still on the ground. And what on earth do I do next? And really having to be intentional about, well, is this a piece that I want that because I only have so much room to carry them? Or is this a piece that I have to leave behind? And really, that was such a clear visual for me that that's how it felt, was like, oh, I'm just broken into these little pieces. And how do I put those back together to be who I'm supposed to be next? Because I knew I was no longer the person I was before. That was very clear to
Yeah.
me.
Right, right. Well, losing a child, I imagine will do that to you. I know I've had many friends who have lost children and just being there for them and I see what it does to them and to their families, and it's really it's really heartbreaking, and if they don't have, and I've always encouraged them to talk to people, if
Mm-hmm.
they don't have that connection with the people in their lives that they love, and then maybe somebody from the outside who can look in on them.
Yeah.
um, I think, that's so sorely needed. And I think this book, this 20 Shades of Grief, will do that for somebody who is struggling.
Yeah. And it's an opportunity for folks who feel like, they don't want to be a burden, or maybe they're not comfortable talking about it publicly or grieving out. I was grieving out loud. I didn't have any other options, but most people don't choose that. Right. But we do need to be witnessed and we need to know we're not the only one it's happening to and we're not alone. So this is 20 different stories from 20 diverse people about 20 different kinds of loss and what happened next, how they dealt with it, what they do now, how it's impacted their life. So even just being able to read it will help people feel less alone.
Yeah, I love that. So we're talking about the book 20 Shades of Grief. It's available, it will be available on Amazon. If you're interested in reading about this book, getting a copy of this book, head on over to actiontakerspublishing.com/books. And you'll find all the information that you need there to connect with the authors like Suzanne and get your copy. Um, so tell us a little bit about your chapter. What do you talk about in your, without giving too much away, what does your chapter entail?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how to tell my story without having spoilers, but you'll learn more in the chapter. My chapter is really about my journey since my son Ben died. He died in September of 2020, so just over 5 years ago. And that was, as we've talked about, as much of a rupture and a disruption of my identity and my life and my future and all the things as you would expect the death of a child to be, and really required of me to approach the world and life and everything in a different way because I knew, as I'd said, I was no longer the person I was before. My priorities shifted. What's important to you becomes so clear. It's like a bright light is shone on your life and nothing is hidden anymore. And then you have to decide what to do about that. So it's really about some of the decisions that I made along the way. And then a little bit about how now I work with clients and other grievers to help them find their own path because there's no one right thing to say. There's no one right way to grieve. It's very messy. Maybe that's the only right way is to just accept how messy it is. But I love working with people to help them find their own way, the same way that I found mine.
Now, were you doing counseling and that kind of stuff before he passed, or was this something that you found afterwards?
Yeah, I actually had literally just finished my coaching training. And the weekend that he passed, my daughter and I were away, and I was fine tuning the final touches on the programs I was going to launch when we got back. And those programs have yet to see the light of day. I don't know if they ever will, but it became very clear to me that what I was supposed to be doing was helping grievers and the people who support them, because it's hard on the people who support them too, because as a
Mhm.
culture and a collective, we don't know how to do that. And
Yeah.
so we end up creating isolation because we don't know what to say. We don't know what to do. That ended up being what my TEDx talk was about, right? It was about how can we show up differently. So it became very clear to me that as much as I'm passionate about the work that I thought I was going to do, this is the work that I'm here to do.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. And I always think that, when we go through a trial or some kind of a challenge, that there's always some kind of a silver lining. There's always something that maybe we find a purpose, right? We find a person or we connect with a person that we wouldn't have met otherwise, and that person, changes our lives or
Mhm.
comes into our lives, at the right time. And it's not to downplay the challenge or the thing that you went through, but it seems that there's always, if you look at it correctly, there's always someone or something or that happens. There's always that spark of light that you can run towards when you're in the dark.
Yeah, I think that's a big ask of grievers that have had catastrophic losses. I kind of don't subscribe to the everything happens for a reason. I didn't need Ben to die to be in transformation. I already was. I didn't need him to die to have a life's purpose. I already had one, you know. But I do think that things happen to us and then we get to decide what to do next. And
Yeah,
we get to decide how much we're going to let that thing change us or repivot our focus, align our focus. I struggle a little bit with the silver linings language because I think that, yeah, that doesn't land for me. I know it lands for lots of people. So if that makes
right.
sense to you, run with it. But I think for me, it's more about what choices are you going to make next? Because I knew I wasn't a victim here. I wasn't
Right.
victimized and I don't live in a victim mindset. And I was very clear that I wanted to continue to be in a growth mindset. So that meant I had to be intentional about, well, what needs to change? What do I want to change? Who do I want to be now? Like so many millions of questions, which you don't navigate in those very early days and months and even years. But
Right.
that opportunity is there because you will not be the same. And
Yeah.
so, again, like that's either going to happen just by happening and accidentally, or you can take that opportunity to really be able to do that with some intention. And I do think that that does end up often giving your loss some meaning, right? When you can allow it to really crack you open and let you see the world a different way. You know, it's sort of weird to talk about the gifts of grief, but to me, one of the gifts absolutely is this opportunity for transformation, because you're not going to be the same and you know that. So
Right.
you're not trying to force out of your comfort. Like, you're already way out of your comfort zone. Nothing makes any sense, right? The world is upside down and backwards. And who are you going to be in that space is a decision that we're making every day, every moment.
Yeah. Yeah, and it comes down to I think looking forward instead of
Yeah.
looking back. I think a
Yeah.
lot
And
of
for
us,
me, it's about looking forward and how do I carry my person with me?
right.
How do I bring those losses with me? I'm not trying
Hmm.
to move on or get over it or leave him behind someplace. It's
Right.
how do we do that with our losses? How do we find a way to carry them that makes that person present in our life, makes their lessons present in our life, all the things they meant to us? How do we find a way to carry forward with all of that?
Yeah, yeah. I'm writing a chapter in the book, and mine's about the loss of my mom.
Mm,
My mom was she was the glue to the family. And
yes.
and now that she's passed, we don't have the birthday parties like we used to anymore. We don't have the
Mhm.
Christmases like we used to have anymore. And everything's changed.
Yeah.
So I know my brothers will message me, and they'll send a picture of all of us around the kitchen table blowing out candles and saying, I miss this. And it's like, yeah, but you know what? We're all like doing our own thing now, and she's gone, and we're not over there every week, and it's so hard.
Yeah.
Um, and I can't imagine what it's like, with losing a child the same way. And I think that, I love how you said, bringing them along with you,
Mhm.
and trying and living your life, and just to keep going.
Yeah. And I think it's really important to recognize, it's very normal with moms, right? With the loss of the mom, that really shifts the family dynamic, because so often they are the glue. But if we can be aware of the roles that they played and the things that they did, then other people can step up into those roles. And so then it becomes about having that conversation and saying, wow, you know what? I really miss those days too. How do we, now that she's gone, have some of those moments? Maybe we don't have them as often. Maybe our lives are all busy and there's now additional generations that also have pulls on their time. But maybe once a season, or once in the summer, we do a big family picnic. And in January, we do a post Christmas family gathering
Yeah.
or post holiday family gathering. Like, how do we keep some of those traditions alive if we want to?
Right.
There's always a way. There's always a way. It's all about that connection and conversation. And that's the part we're scared to have. But that's
Yeah.
the key to it all.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you, Suzanne. Suzanne, what do you want the readers to take away from reading your chapter?
What I want readers to take away from reading my chapter is hope, that even in the darkest moments, when the world makes no sense at all, and you can't even imagine what life looks like or how it works, there is still hope. There is still a way to take one breath at a time, one baby step at a time, and build something meaningful.
Well, thank you. We're talking to Suzanne Jabour, who is one of the authors of 20 Shades of Grief. If you're interested in getting a copy of the book, head on over to actiontakerspublishing.com/books, and you will find all kinds of things over there. And Suzanne, thank you for being part of this and for sharing your story in it.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having us.